This was not a good night for the president. Everything he touched was a loser. Trump hasn't been this embarrassed since he found out there was a Donald Trump Jr. But don't worry. If you're tired of all the losing, fear not. He's got an excuse.
In defiance of the Constitution. You know, he's selling things from the office. He's taking money and gifts from other countries. The emoluments clause. He's breaking every law and every rule that we have in our country, and no one seems to be able to stop.
Brace yourself. Jimmy Kimmel and Rosie O'Donnell just entered their villain era, and Donald Trump was a target. They threw shade so heavy the lights had to work overtime. Trump fired insults back and instantly regretted it. The crowd went wild. Cameras kept rolling. And what happened next is so shocking the replay button might file a complaint. Don't blink. This is the funniest, most explosive Hollywood versus Trump moment you'll ever see.
Well, I do know the number, and Trump's name appears 2,020 times. 2020. Wasn't that also the year they stole the election from him? That is an unlucky number.
Anyway, long story short, Trump went to sue CBS, isn't that right?
Yes, because of an interview on 60 Minutes where he didn't like the way he was edited or that Kamala Harris was edited.
So even though the legal team thought he'd win, they still paid out the $16 million, and Stephen Colbert basically said it was a bribe.
Which it was.
There was an electric shift in the room the moment the roasting started. The kind of shift that makes people sit up straighter because something chaotic is about to go down. The one steering that first magnificent explosion of comedic warfare happened to be Jimmy Kimmel, and he delivered every ounce of mockery with the look of someone who hadn't just prepared. He'd been training.
Trump claims this whole thing is a Democrat hoax, and the reason he refused to sign an executive order to release the files months ago is because it's a waste of time. And that's the thing about Donald Trump. This is not a man who wastes time on nonsense.
We're going to have a UFC fight. Think of this on the grounds of the White House.
This is an executive order relating to the use of paper straws.
Changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
Barely had the shockwaves settled when the second wave arrived from an entirely different comedic direction. The kind of roasting that sneaks up and then detonates like glitter that can't be cleaned up once. Released. At the core of that detonation was Rosie O'Donnell, making it clear that comedy has no brakes when the target is sitting right there pretending the heat isn't getting to him.
Can you explain to me, though, I cannot believe that every Republican congressman or woman, every Republican senator is stupid.
Well, they're not stupid, but they're definitely afraid of him. People in America are afraid of him. They're afraid to stand up to him, against him, because... And when I did on The View in 2006, you know, I remember Joy Behar saying, you're not going to say...
If you're enjoying this video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Just when it looked like things might level out, Kimmel's tone switched again. Slow, taunting, theatrical in the best possible way. The jokes were polished, but the expressions made them twice as destructive because Trump kept trying to pretend nothing was wrong, even though his face had the unmistakable tension of someone desperately wishing the cameras would malfunction.
In fact, he's got two of them. He wrote, Trump wasn't on the ballot and shutdown were the two reasons that Republicans lost elections tonight. Now, if Republicans had won and he wasn't on the ballot, would he take credit for that? Oh, yes, he definitely would, but he lost. And then he posted this. He posted, and so it begins, which was either a response to Mamdani winning the mayoral race or he just sat down.
The audience didn't get time to recover before the next comedic blast hit the room, like caffeine injected straight into the atmosphere. Trump's attempts to stay stoic were crumbling around the edges, and Rosie O'Donnell was the one pushing it there. Her roast wrapped in the sweetest tone of someone who enjoys what they're doing far more than they probably should.
I just said facts, and you would think that I called his mother a whore. You know, he went insane. And for 20 years, he's been using me as a punching bag. Even at the debate, when he was first running, when the newscaster said, you call women pigs and gross and disgusting and horrible, and he said, no, only Rosie O'Donnell.
Silence didn't get a chance to form before the next segment of destruction was served with impeccable timing. Nothing exaggerated visually, nothing dramatic physically, just confidence sharpened into humor. One heavy hit after another. Trump visibly blinked in that way a person does when their brain buffer overloads. And somewhere in the middle of all that glorious meltdown stood Jimmy Kimmel, the smirk of a man who knew this exact meltdown was coming and was savoring every second. If Trump had hoped for a moment to breathe, fate had different plans, and humor returned like a runaway train, refusing to slow down. The jokes weren't loud. They were razor precise, like static electricity that strikes before you even register the spark. Watching him try to keep his expression intact while the laughter around him got louder was a cinematic masterpiece. Rosie O'Donnell was responsible for that masterpiece, treating comedy not as a weapon, but as a luxury purchase she intended to enjoy fully. The energy rose again in a slow burn, like a pot started to boil before anyone notices the bubbles. Then suddenly, every comedic line hit in rapid fire, smashing through whatever remained of Trump's internal defenses. It almost looked like he was trying to mentally teleport somewhere safer, but the camera never looked away. And that exact moment of collapse was fueled by Jimmy Kimmel, who wielded timing so perfectly it could be classified as scientific.
I mean, seriously, what is that supposed to mean? What would motivate him to post "and so it begins" at almost midnight? What would compel him to contact his social media guy, Dan Scavino, that late at night to say, "Dan, I need you to post "and so it begins." All caps, Mr. President. Yeah, all caps, you idiot, and put a ... in front of it.
The crowd barely got their lungs back before another hit landed with showmanship. So casual, it was borderline taunting. The smirk, the breath, the glance, each one stacked tension higher and higher until Trump finally stopped pretending he wasn't internally combusting. It was a kind of roast that could age into legend, and Rosie O'Donnell was the one pouring gasoline on the fire like it was a luxury perfume. Every ounce of ego that Trump brought into that space was now plastered across his expression, trapped under a magnifying glass of comedic sabotage. The momentum didn't falter for even a beat, and it grew wilder with every passing second. Like performance art disguised as mockery, the roasting refused cool and somehow found a way to evolve into something even sharper. Trump's posture tightened. His shoulders lifted a millimeter like that would protect his pride. But the cameras made sure the whole world caught it. Humor crashed into that tension with zero mercy and all the dramatic flair of a theatrical finale. And Rosie O'Donnell was the one lighting the fireworks with a smile that translated directly into chaos.
He had a press conference right before we were live where he had a teenager, Tara O'Connor, who was Miss Teen USA. She had kissed a girl in the village, and they took a picture and put it on all the newspapers. And he made her do a press conference where she apologized. And it looked to me like a pimp and a prostitute. And I said that on the air. And then I proceeded to list facts, not hyperbole, just facts about who he was and what he did. Bankrupt all these times, money from his father, not a self-made man, can't quantify his riches on four.
Whatever Trump thought he was going to do next never happened, because the next comedic blow landed before his brain could complete the command to act. Soft delivery, devastating effect, an artistic contradiction that turned his frozen expression into entertainment for millions. And the conductor of that particular emotional shutdown was Jimmy Kimmel, whose pacing could have been bottled and sold as performance perfection. Laughter in the room became a living organism, echoing, feeding itself, reacting to the slightest spark of tension. Rosie O'Donnell escalated it without raising her voice, using nothing but timing and the smug delight of a comedian who knows the roast has turned into cultural history in real time. The whole room was quaking from the comedic earthquake, and yet another wave was already forming. Trump attempted to salvage dignity by adjusting his expression, but the cameras caught even that, and the audience reacted before he could reset. Humor barreled through whatever patch defenses he had left. Jimmy Kimmel was at the center of that moment, keeping the pressure high with the ease of someone recounting a bedtime story while simultaneously dismantling a public image.
Right. And Trump has been desperately trying to convince anyone who'll listen that Democrats are responsible for the shutdown and that it has nothing to do with him trying to hide the Epstein files. The gaslighting has reached a fever pitch as Trump cuts off the supply of food to children, families, senior citizens, etc. But Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, wants you to know, just because they're cutting off your food and want to cut off your health insurance.
If there were any pieces of ego left unshattered, fate delivered no rescue. Comedy returned with surgical precision, landing blow after blow with a sweetness that somehow made it worse. Trump was staring forward like a person watching their reputation dissolve through noise and timing alone. Rosie O'Donnell did that. Her delivery smooth, cold, and mercilessly theatrical. The atmosphere hit its peak when the energy swirled back once more without needing setup or build-up. Just raw comedic confidence. Jimmy Kimmel delivered that final stretch with a calm, so terrifyingly effective that you'd swear he was born for this moment. But the night wasn't done without the last devastating sweep of humor. Not spoken loudly, not waved around dramatically, simply executed with precision, sharp enough to slice through the air. The audience exploded one last time while Trump sat motionless, ego reduced to dust under pressure of everything that had happened. Rosie O'Donnell closed the event through sheer presence alone. No theatrics necessary, just a victorious glow of someone who knows a moment like this doesn't come twice.
A red check instead of a blue check, so I thought it was a fake account. I said, oh, that's kind of funny, but it's fake. And he said, it's not fake, it's on his Truth Social. I don't go on Truth Social, I don't follow him or anything. And then I sat down and wrote the reply and posted it. And to tell you the truth, that was kind of the end of it for me, because I know he can't do that, but the Supreme Court has given him unbridled powers, and who knows what he can and can't do.
Anyone who thought the chaos had peaked had clearly underestimated the stamina of pure, unfiltered comedic vengeance. The tension in the room had mutated into something almost mythological, the type of energy that makes people lean forward even when they're not supposed to touch what's in front of them. The smirks grew wider, the silence thicker, and then back came the next comedic strike, delivered through that same relaxed posture that always hides danger. Jimmy Kimmel unleashed another round of beautifully exaggerated mockery, the kind that doesn't need volume or theatrics because power is already baked into every syllable. That attempt at stoicism didn't last long before the temperature was raised yet again, not abruptly, but slowly and cruelly like someone turning a thermostat while making eye contact. Trump's expression faltered at the exact moment the next line hit, and the room reacted before he even had time to blink. Rosie O'Donnell was the reason the temperature spiked again, using the kind of sarcasm that could slice diamonds. She didn't need to escalate physically. Her delivery alone did the demolition. The comedic blows settled over the space like wildfire smoke, visible, consuming, and impossible to ignore.
I would love to know what's going through Trump's head right now. On Friday, he's holed up in the White House, blasting music so loud everyone in the area could hear it. Nothing to see there, just the president alone in the White House blasting Phantom of the Opera at full volume while rage tweeting about how everybody's out to get him. And he also turned the volume up to 11 for a number from Elton John.
Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me is blasting out of a speaker over in the Rose Garden, over here onto the North Lawn. As we understand it, in talking to some folks,
there was no rescue, no break, no pause. The audience had shifted into that mode where laughter becomes involuntary, uncontrollable, like a reflex triggered by watching something too unbelievable to fully process. Trump's eyes scanned the room like a man hoping to find an exit sign that wasn't there. Then came the next punch, perfectly timed, so gentle in tone, it made the destruction twice as catastrophic. Jimmy Kimmel delivered it with that same smug confidence that suggested he knew the ship was already underwater, and he was just deciding how stylishly to sink it further. Rosie O'Donnell stepped right into that silence and ignited it, throwing sarcasm like confetti that somehow weighed 50 pounds. Trump didn't flinch this time, not because it didn't affect him, but because his facial muscles clearly gave up trying. Rosie leaned into that collapse and made sure every person watching knew they were witnessing a meltdown disguised as stillness. There was no rescue, no break, no pause. The audience had shifted into that mode where laughter becomes involuntary, uncontrollable, like a reflex triggered by watching something too unbelievable to fully process. Trump's eyes scanned the room like a man hoping to find an exit sign that wasn't there.
Yes, because that's what he has the power now to demand that people lose their jobs, to call out private citizens like myself or like Bruce Springsteen, who spoke out very eloquently about him as well. And this is what they do. They try to silence people, and they put the fear of God in everyone that they're going to lose their jobs.
Is that like you've left America?
Yes.
Because of what's been going on.
Because of him. I read Project 2025. That was pretty much the foundation of what he wanted to do. And I said, I have to get out of here. And I left before the inauguration on purpose because for 20 years, he's been using me as a punchline in all of it.
Then came the next punch. Perfectly timed, so gentle in tone. It made the destruction twice as catastrophic. Jimmy Kimmel delivered it with that same smug confidence that suggested he knew the ship was already underwater and he was just deciding how stylishly to sink it further. Trump sat frozen like someone trapped between rage and surrender. Jimmy Kimmel pushed it further with a roast so smooth it registered as elegance before the impact hit, and the crowd reacted as if they just watched a piece of history unfold. It became clear she wasn't trying to win anything. She had already won. Now she was just decorating the trophy. Trump's expression shifted again, barely, but enough to set the crowd off a second time. That was all the fuel Jimmy Kimmel needed. He swept back into the moment with another perfectly sharpened comedic slice, delivered so casually it almost didn't feel like an attack until the room reacted. Then it became undeniable. And right when it felt like it couldn't go further, Rosie O'Donnell took the reins again, sending the final explosive wave of sarcasm into the room, without even looking like she was trying. It was silent confidence in its most dangerous form.